Thank you so much, Doug. I have a follow-up question from that, and I'm so excited for you that you just started doing the work. That's so amazing. Um, Todd, when you said Katie had a concern, or there could be a concern if you start with self-judgment when you're not familiar with the work, that you could use it to justify rather, and that doesn't bring peace. And so my question for you, because it's a fear of mine, like especially if I feel shame, um, I'm afraid of questioning it because then I'll get away with it. So, is it possible, in your experience, that you actually could walk away guilt free when you shouldn't? You know what I'm saying? Is it possible that if I questioned something that made me feel bad about myself, and at the end of it, I was like, oh, I feel good, that I actually would have used the work incorrectly? Like, to use an extreme example, if I hit someone and I was like, oh, I feel so bad that I hit them, and then I questioned, I shouldn't have hit them because I feel bad that I hit them. And if I came out the other side like, I should have hit them. Is it possible to kind of justify yourself where you shouldn't? You know.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And that's the why Byron Katie doesn't have new people start with judging their self judgments,
Mhm.
like but questioning their self judgments. So that's a perfect example. Like you hit somebody, and then you have the thought, "I shouldn't have hit them," and you're like, "Oh, that's a stressful thought. I'll question it." And and if you're new, this is really important because if you're new, you might think, "Oh, the turnaround is telling me I should have hit them, so therefore." I'm justified and I'll just go on hitting people from now on. Yeah, that would be a misuse of the work. The work always points back to self responsibility, back to taking responsibility for my own internal experience, my own happiness. And uh, when you've been doing the work for a while, or if you get it quickly, you'll know how to navigate that. Like what the work is really trying to do is create balance in my thinking. And so if I hit somebody and then I felt extreme guilt and extreme shame and was really putting myself down into the gutter over it, I couldn't even, couldn't move because of that heaviness, that extra I'm beating myself up, then the turnaround, I should have hit them, is going to try to bring that up a little bit. Like basically it would be I'd be asking myself, how's it understandable that I would have hit them? And I would start finding compassion for myself. Like, oh, I was just caught up in that story. Oh, I didn't see another way. I was just blind with my rage or something. Like it doesn't justify it, but it finds compassion for it. And this is a very, very, very fine line. And it's something that can catch you up, especially if you're new to the process, because you can think, oh yeah, I can just go around doing what I want, and I'll just do the work on it, but that's not the spirit of it. So if you can take responsibility and not beat yourself up, that's the balance. And if you just if you do the work and just find that point where, okay, I get it. I should have hit him, like in the sense of it's understandable that I did. That loosens that self attack, but I'm not going to take it too far. If I keep going with that turnaround, like, and start going further with it, I'm going to go into imbalance in the other direction, and I'm going to end up justifying, which is not the point. So this is that little subtlety. It shows up a lot in the work, because I guess because life is structured that way, where you have to balance two opposites. And if you can understand that and work with that, you can question absolutely anything. You can work with things that would sound like the turnarounds would sound crazy, like absolutely crazy. But you know that you're not going to abuse that. You're not going to take the turnaround out of context and blow it up into something crazy. You're going to use that turnaround just like a drop of that medicine to balance things out so that you don't have the stress of it. That's all. And then finally, with the work, is so important to understand that it's about our internal experience only. It's not about, it's not like about what I should do, or even, or especially not some kind of thing about public policy or what people should do or running a society or anything like that. It's about our internal experience. And so a turnaround is just there to provide that little bit of balancing so that I can unhook from that stressful reaction that I'm having, and find a neutral place again. And so if you have that principle in hand, principle of balance, you can do the work on absolutely anything. Yeah. There's a big difference between justification, like, yeah, I guess what I'm to say is there's a big difference between taking responsibility for yourself and beating yourself up. And one is, beating yourself up is actually violent. Taking responsibility for yourself is provides peace, gives experience of peace. And then likewise, on the other side, there's a big difference between justification and finding compassion for yourself. So compassion gives me a sense of peace. Justification puts me in that war place of trying to prove that I'm better than I actually am, trying to deny that I actually did something, or trying to make myself feel right when I actually feel wrong. So justification is, if you go too far with compassion, you might end up with justification. Or if you hold it wrong, you might dip into justification. But if you notice that, you'll feel the stress of it. So just come back out, come back to the compassion place. And likewise, if you go too far into beating yourself up, then come back into the place of just take responsibility for it without beating yourself up. These are very delicate balancing acts. But if you can do that, if you can find compassion for yourself, at the same time you're taking responsibility for yourself, you've now landed on something amazing. The gutters are beating yourself up on one extreme and justifying on the other extreme. The center balance point is compassion for yourself and taking self responsibility. Those two go together and they complement each other, and it makes a beautiful marriage, if you will.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, any other questions on that or on anything else? Or we still have a few minutes if you'd like to do the work.
Um, Doug, Susan, Edwin, I have something, and I would love it if you have something.
Looks like you're on.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's again kind of related to Doug. Thank you for bringing that up. That this morning I got disappointed in rejection, and I it was with someone brand new. I definitely don't judge them. It was such a minor. It was just like an everyday rejection. Like, no, I'm busy. Like it's so there's. I really. It's very hard to judge her. I could do it, but I don't. It really is. So that's where I'm looking at this self judgment or judging her. Like I could sit down and say, she should have been available. She should say yes. She should want to be with me anytime. But I just met her and it's such a minor thing. So 99.9% of me absolutely can't get into that space. So what I guess one thing that I feel at the same time when I'm like, I feel like this, I never want to see someone's rejection. I don't want to see it. Like I just don't ever reject me. Just don't respond. Like so there's something in me that's like I shouldn't be upset at minor rejections. I don't want to feel rejected. And it's sort of like I'm interested in what's there to work on there when it seems like it's so clear it's not her fault. It's very clear that there's nothing to judge her for, yet I'm still upset that she said no.
Yeah. 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 So this falls right in line with what we've just been talking about, and And I think it's be good to play with this a little bit. Like, what what would be a way to, what would be the thought to question here? Um, if 99% of you is just not judging her, like it's like that's not where the stress really is. So one way is just what you said. Like, I never want to see someone rejecting me. Just literally taking dictation from your mind, whatever you're saying. I don't want to feel rejected. Just what you said there. These kinds of things can be great. And and if you wanted to play with it, because sometimes you can reach it, remember that even if 99% of you is thinking, this is just so clear, cut and dried. It's not her fault. She didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing to blame here. It's all my fault. Even though like 99% is seeing that, if that 1% is there that's going, I I feel like it. She did reject me. It's almost subconscious. You know what I mean? Like there's something that's still feeling like it is believing that she did, and just maybe for a split second. So if you can locate that, if you can get in touch with that, then you still could write a worksheet on her saying like, what does it mean when she said, I'm just not available, I'm too busy. Um, and and if you can get really close to that, it might be something like, I she doesn't like me, or yeah, I'm a low priority for her, or whatever. And so, do you see what I'm saying? Like, even though I'm hearing you 100%, that maybe it's just we need to run with the stressful thought about yourself and about the rejection, or in general, I just don't want to feel rejected. I think that's fine. But there's also always that one little tiny spot where you can touch the part of you that that believes that she dissed you in some regard. And if you can, and if it's genuine, then great. And if not, go with what the what the stress is telling you. So, having said that, where does the stress point you?
Um, it's almost like then there's a third option. I
Uh-huh.
definitely feel like okay, I could for sure write a worksheet with that 1%. If I just was like, okay, let's just judge her, let's just be unreasonable and judge her, I could do that for sure. And then the block between that comes up is there's too many. Like, what am I just gonna live in a worksheet? Like it's like I'm gonna like it's happens all like I don't have time for this. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great one. I love that one. The mind comes up with that one
yeah,
again and again in different ways, and it's so good. It's just like, I'm not going to even do this one because there's too many to do. And of course, that's what we
yeah,
all do that. But the way I find peace with that is that I don't believe that it's even possible to do all the work that I could do in my entire life.
mm,
Like, each hour might contain 100,000 worksheets. I don't know. I haven't counted them, and a whole lifetime. Forget about it. So I gave up on that a long time ago. I just don't even think of I'm going to
thank you.
get all my work done. It's just not going to happen. So then I look at it as, let me do whatever I want to do. I do what appeals to me. And so I just pick and choose. And when I'm ready to do the work, I pick one that is a good one, and we'll just run with that. And I always learn something, and it's always entertaining and enjoyable. And I kind of just don't worry about where it gets me, or whether I'm gonna, you know, whether I'm gonna get them all done or anything. It's just, yeah, love the one you're with. Keep it really simple. Yeah. So anyway, that's just an aside. Going back to your thoughts here, where where would you go if you were thinking about what thought to question in your situation at this point?
I think I would go to she thinks I'm a loser. It's like
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. Like, oh, I'm getting rejected. I'm too needy. Like I shouldn't have reached out so soon. Like
yeah,
she thinks I'm a loser. That's why it's like, oh, I don't want to see the rejection. I want to take it back. So I think that's where I
yeah.
get to.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So this is an example of what we were talking about earlier with Doug of the kind of primary and secondary stressful thoughts. Like the secondary or even tertiary, the third level was I don't have enough time to do all these
Right.
worksheets. Right? You might have to start there and work your way back. The second layer is I don't want to feel rejected, or I don't want to ever see someone's rejection again. Like that kind of, it's secondary, or I'm no good at handling rejection, that kind of self judgment. Those are secondary. The primary is what got that 1% of you in the first place, which is in that split second, you thought that she thought you were a loser. And so that's the source of it. That's the cause. And identifying that when you work that, it has a great chance of loosening the whole chain. Like it loosens everything. But it takes a certain amount of humility to even go there, to even choose that, because um, it's so minor. The mind would say, "I was over that in a second. I know it's. I rationally know that it's really not her. Like she was reasonable, and it's not. That's not the problem. So I know that intellectually. I know that, and that can get in the way of the part inside of you that cried for a split second and then got covered over by rational truth. So I'm interested in the irrational crying part of me that needs my attention, that's been sequestered to the to the dungeon underneath here. And when it cries, if I have the time to do the work, I listen, and I ask it to tell me its story, and I sit down with it and see, let's do the work and see what you can find. You know, you, the little 1%, can you find peace in this? And let it go through that question, go through those questions and do its work. But it requires a humility of like, even though I get it, I don't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it. The middle part of me doesn't get it. And so I have to like stop and slow down and go with the slowest part of myself.
Thank you.